Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another edition of the Danielle Moodie Show. Y'all, it's Monday, and what do I want to say to you? Um, there are 21 days, 21 effing days until the election. I just typed it in because I was unsure, and I got to tell you, I had a little bit of a panic attack. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Friends, what a weekend it has been. I hope that you all are rested and ready and prepared for this week because something in my spirit is telling me that it's going to be a doozy. Now, my horoscope said that this week was going to be filled with activations and reinventions and what have you. And I'm hoping that means a good thing because let me tell you, what transpired over the weekend, Donald Trump going on one of that drunk judges show on Fox to talk about the military. There is so much for us to cover today. And as things get closer, I will tell you that Donald Trump and the Republicans' language is going to get increasingly violent and threatening. Because I had this thought, and it's one that I've shared on Woke AF. It's one that I've shared on the New Abnormal and other podcasts that I do, and I'm going to share it here, which is that 2020 was a dress rehearsal for the Republicans. January 6th was a dress rehearsal. They wanted to see how far they could take their violence, how far they could take their threats. Now, while the architect of January 6th is, free to run for election again, we know that hundreds of the insurrectionists are in prison. The fact, though, remains that their mission was accomplished. They wanted to showcase their power, right? And their belief system to the world. And they did that. Donald Trump is their king, and they will do anything for their king. And what I'm realizing is that Donald Trump loses this election, which I pray to God, good spirits, that he does. He is facing either certain jail time, less likely, in my humble opinion, or he is facing a significant loss of resources, so his wealth, his prestige, and his access. And that I actually think that he cares about more. So here we are, where he's like a rabid dog in a corner. The only thing that is standing between him and freedom is this election. Because we know that if he becomes president again, Donald Trump is going to wave that magic wand. He's going to release those criminals from prison, those insurrectionists, right? He's going to do away with the federal court cases. I'm certain that even though Georgia is a state RICO case, that somehow that will disappear too. So the only thing that is standing between Donald Trump and his freedom is this election. So do we think that he's going to go quietly into the good night and just say, oh, okay, I lost and keep it pushing? No, they want to drag this election in so close that they are able to steal it, that they are able to do a repeat of 2000 with the pregnant Chads and the hanging Chads and kick this shit up to the Supreme Court, where Donald Trump has stacked with 3 MAGA judges and then the other 2 right-wing sycophants, and we're cooked. And so I want people to understand that for Donald Trump, even for the entirety of the Republican Party, this is about instilling and mainstreaming Project 2025. That's what this is about for the Republican Party. But for Donald Trump, this election is his exit out of jail card, his get out of jail free card, his do away with criminal charges, his do away, right, with these court cases. We already know what happened down in Florida, right? Judge Cannon, oh, no, we're not going to prosecute him. Or other folks, oh, we'll wait until after the election to do sentencing. Judge Merchan here in New York. All of those things will be accelerated if Donald Trump loses. So he can't have that. And he is going to do whatever it takes in and outside of the law in order to make sure that he is back in the White House. Because for him, it really would mean certain death, right? Whether that is political death, right? The death of his wealth. Those are the things that matter to Donald Trump. So while he is, yes, indeed, a serious puppet for Project 2025, the instituting of Project 2025 is like a cherry on top of a sundae to him. The sundae is freedom. And that, dear friends, is what should make all of us terrified. Thank you, Jaroslav. Appreciate you. So let's get into things, shall we? There is a story that I was reading over the weekend, and I'm going to put it up here. And it's in The Atlantic. And the title is, I'm running out of ways to explain how bad this is. And what Jari Warzel, the author of this piece, explains is that the misinformation, the disinformation, the lies that are being spread, whether they be about the immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, whether it be about the lies around the hurricane, which we're going to dig into today, whether it be about that, the fact is that Charlie is like, this isn't actually just about lies. This is about something so much deeper. And he says this: even in a decade marred by online grifters, shameless politicians, and alternative right-wing media complex pushing anti-science fringe theories, the events of the past few weeks stand out for their depravity and nihilism. As 2 catastrophic storms upend American cities, a patchwork network of influencers and fake news peddlers have done their best to sow distrust, stoke resentment, and interfere with relief efforts. But this is more than just a misinformation crisis. To watch as real information is overwhelmed by crank theories and public servants battle death threats is to confront 2 alarming facts. And this is what I want us to pay attention to. 2 alarming facts. First, that adorable ecosystem exists to ensconce citizens in an alternate reality. And second, that the people consuming and amplifying those lies are not helpless dupes, but willing participants. You see, friends, here's where we are. This isn't just about lies. I know that I have said this about Earth 1 and Earth 2, right? It started with Kellyanne Conway and her facts, but we have alternative facts. What this is about is creating a fractured reality where we don't know what is true and what is not. We don't know who to trust and who not to. We don't know what images are real, what voices are real. And that is all, right, thanks to AI and AI generated images, AI generated voices, where we're not certain because we don't have no idea how to protect ourselves, and we're not training ourselves the way that little kids are being trained in Finland to recognize fake news versus real news. We're not doing that. And so this alternate reality where JD Vance is like this, chiseled, this chiseled, good looking guy that Representative Mike Collins tweeted out after the debate, like this AI yassified version of JD Vance, where they take Donald Trump's head and they put it on Rambo's body. We all laugh at those things, but all of this is about distortion. I said last week that it is like living inside of this fun house of mirrors, except it's a house of horrors, and we don't know where the exits are. Right? Every time you try and turn a lock, it's like turn a knob, it's like it melts off in your hands. All of this is about building and sowing distrust, not just in our institutions and in government, but in each other and in ourselves. Because if I can't trust what I see and hear, then I become fearful of everything that is around me, which means that then I am more susceptible in looking for a savior. I'm more susceptible to being duped by somebody that says, I alone can fix this. Because when I'm swimming deep in disinformation and lies, and I don't know how to get out, I don't know even which direction to swim in, you begin to drown. This is what the master plan is of the Republican Party. It is like they're going through a checklist of how to build an authoritarian regime and how to do so and have people welcome it and cheer it on. Folks, it is so crazy where we are, but it isn't. It started with little lies about crowd size. And it has manifested into, did Joe Biden actually say that, or was that AI? The image of the little girl on the raft in the hurricane with a dog, clearly AI generated. And when Republicans were called out about it, guess what? They said it doesn't matter. It is emblematic of the feeling that people have. So they are not even trying, as Charlie writes here, to cover their own bullshit. He says this reality fracturing is the result of an information ecosystem, an information ecosystem that is dominated by platforms that offer financial and attentional incentives to lie and enrage, and to turn every tragedy and large event into a shameless content creation opportunity. This collides with a swath of people who would rather live in an alternate reality built on distrust and grievance than change their fundamental beliefs about the world. But the misinformation crisis is not always what we think it is. You see, folks, these people do not want to give up on their belief system. So rather than acknowledge that they've been duped by a grifter, rather than acknowledge that maybe they don't have the skills and expertise to be able to compete in the 21st century the way that their grandfathers and their grandmothers were able to compete in older generations, rather than recognize that I need to build power and skill in a different way. No, they would rather believe that they've been done wrong, that they've been fed a bag of lies, and that those people, those immigrants, those Black people, those transgender people, those are the ones that are responsible for their economic decline. They're the reason their kids are saddled with six-figure debt. If we just got rid of affirmative action, if we just get rid of DEI, then my husband, my son, oh, those good old white boys, they'll be able to get their jobs. And we say to ourselves, well, wait a minute. Danielle, what about the 50% of white women? Y'all, I've been telling you, their power is connected to white men. So if white men are losing power or perceived power in this new reorganization of our society, where there are more seats at the table, which means that they are not on the top of the pyramid, if that is the reorganization, then they too, white women, will lose their power and their economic access in their mind. I want to play a clip for you that I hope upon hopes will play because it really struck me. There's a woman, Kate Swisher, who posted a video on TikTok, and her video is about this couple, white couple, that she was waiting on at a restaurant and what this white woman says to her. Take a listen.
Last night, I'm a waitress. I was waiting on a couple, man and woman, presumably husband and wife. I bring them their drinks, and the woman says, I know who you're voting for, in like this sing-songy voice. And I look at her because, like, who have you been talking to? But also, I wasn't even really sure she was talking to me because it was such an odd question. So I just walk away without saying anything. So I bring them their food. I come back to check on them to make sure they like everything. And the woman says, only a month left. I bet you're excited. And once again, I'm like, are you talking to me? Because there's no context here. Like, I don't know what she's talking about. So then they're paying their bill. The man pulls out his credit card to pay the bill. And then he says, hold on, I want to make sure I have cash because I want to tip you in cash. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And the woman says, only a month left until you don't have to pay taxes on tips anymore. And I'm like, okay, now I get what's going on here. So I kind of shrug it off and I'm like, oh, well, to be honest, if Donald Trump wins, I have no confidence that he would ever influence Congress to introduce a bill to eliminate taxes on tips. And she says, oh, don't worry about that. He's going to get rid of all them anyway. And I'm like, the United States House of Representatives? So then she's like, oh yeah, he's going to get rid of all of them. He's going to restructure the entire government. And they haven't actually tipped me yet. So I'm just like, okay. So then she starts to look annoyed with me and she says, you act like you want to pay taxes. And I'm like, I don't mind paying taxes as long as they're equitable and fairly proportionate to my income and, I actually get something out of them. And I find it really odd to think that I would be coming into work, walking past the kitchen, walking past the chefs, the dishwashers, and they pay taxes and I don't. Like, how do you justify that? And then she says, don't question it. Do not question him. And I just stare at her because I'm like, what did you just say? And then she says, I think he has a plan. Just trust it. And then she gets up and they start to leave.
Did you hear that? The woman says to her, don't question it. Don't question him. I think he has a plan. Don't question it. Don't question him. Folks, the whole point of democracy is for us to be able to question our government because we actually care. Because in a democracy, we have a voice and a vote. And our representatives are responsible and accountable to us. So what we have to understand in this example that this woman gave is that these people don't want to be woken up, folks. They want Donald Trump to take care of them. They have obfuscated their responsibility as citizens in this country. They don't want to have to think about it anymore. They don't want to have to think about democracy. They don't want to have to think about their taxes. They don't want to have to think about where to send their kids to school, where they're going to be employed. Donald Trump said, don't worry about it. I got it covered. And much like they say in The Handmaid's Tale, under his eye, don't question him. He has a plan for us. And this white woman saw this young white woman and said, she must be so excited. Donald Trump is going to be president soon, and then all of our problems go away. Because Donald Trump is telling them, oh, I'm going to deport your problems. I'm going to shut down government. She said, get rid of the House of Representatives. Oh, yes, Donald Trump is going to redo it all. These people don't want to be saved, folks. They don't want to be woke. They want to be sheep. Donald Trump is their herder. The rest of us see him herding them over a cliff. But they see Donald Trump as their savior. Their savior from these Black and brown people. Their savior from these gender fluid people. Their savior from any progress whatsoever. I watched this video, y'all, and I was scared to death. Because for so long, I thought that like we just needed to provide these people with more information and then they would develop consciousness, right? That they would then wake up. Thank you, Bajorn. That's not it. They want to stay asleep. They want to be in their pods. If you watch The Matrix, right? You just make people so comfortable and so complacent. They're good. So Donald Trump, all he has to do is tell them, you won't need to vote again. And they're like, whew, thank God. We hear you won't need to vote again, and we freak the fuck out. Thank you so much. They hear that and they're excited, folks. And that's why I'm like, oh, I'm not quite sure how we combat this. And so going back, right, to the hurricane for a moment, going back to the article in The Atlantic where they're talking about fractured reality. Well, look what's happened. Did you all see this over the weekend? FEMA had to suspend their hurricane relief efforts because there were credible threats that the National Guard there saw and heard and said that we have to suspend our outreach where people come in person to assess damage. That's how FEMA works. There are thousands of FEMA folks that are in North Carolina, that are in Florida, and Donald Trump and JD fucking Vance and these Republicans have put their fucking lives at danger, at risk. So now, guess who's not going to get fucking aid? So they said aid to several communities impacted by Hurricane Helene were temporarily paused in parts of North Carolina over the weekend. And this comes, as they say, a quote, backdrop of misinformation about responses to recent storms. And this is what FEMA said. Quote, for the safety of our dedicated staff and disaster survivors we are helping, FEMA has made some operational adjustments. Disaster recovery centers will continue to be open as scheduled. Survivors continue to register for assistance, and we continue to help the people of North Carolina, but we're just taking a brief pause so you know no one dies. Where are we living, folks? Who's going to connect the dots here? Let me do some good work. Donald Trump says back in 2017 in Charlottesville, right? After the Tiki Torch, Nazis are screaming about replacement. You're not going to replace us. Jews are not going to replace us. Donald Trump says there are fine people on both sides. Heather Heyer was killed, right? There. A protester was killed. People were run over. Then Donald Trump says, When asked to denounce white supremacy on the stage with Joe Biden, he tells who? Oh, that's right. The militia groups to stand back and stand by. 2020 happens, right? The global health pandemic. What happens? Donald Trump is blaming Asian Americans, calling it the China virus. What then happens? An escalation in violence against Asian Americans. Then we have January 6th. After Donald Trump had told those motherfuckers to stand back and stand by, they showed up armed and ready. He knew they were armed. We know that he knew they were armed because Cassidy Hutchinson, in her testimony before the January 6th committee, told us so. He said, they're not here to hurt me. More violence. Donald Trump speaks, violence occurs. Donald Trump speaks, violence occurs. Donald Trump said Springfield, Ohio, overrun with Haitian immigrants. Then what happens? Bomb threats, school closures, municipality buildings closed. So tell me again, why the fuck we are not talking about this in mainstream corporate media? Tell me again why they are not connecting the dots that literally a toddler could put together. Because the Republican Party wants violence. The media wants a horse race because that's what's good for their clicks. That's where we are, where violence has become our norm, where the mainstream corporate media doesn't even react to Donald Trump. Let me play for you what he said most recently. Trump says Americans who don't support him are, quote, enemies, and say they may need to be handled by the media. Take a listen to Donald Trump on Fox, on Maria Bartiromo's show. I don't know how to pronounce her name, and I don't care. But take a listen to this, folks.
Are you expecting chaos on Election Day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on Election Day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists.
Right. Just what are you throwing out numbers.
Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful Election Day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within.
Listen.
Not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Because they can't let what happen? People disagree with Donald Trump. They can't let what? American citizens vote for who they want to be their president. And if you don't vote for Donald Trump, then you are considered an enemy that he is waiting to punish by military action. Let me remind everybody watching that Donald Trump wanted to shoot protesters. The summer of 2020, George Floyd is murdered. We're at the height of the pandemic. People are in the streets protesting. They're at the White House, at Lafayette Square. Donald Trump dupes Mark Milley in his uniform to make the march across to the church that he doesn't fucking attend, to hold up a Bible he doesn't read, upside down, by the way. That should have been a sign. And while they're walking, he says to General Milley, can't we just shoot them in the leg or something? Milley, of course, would wait to reveal that little hot tidbit until his book dropped, because that's what we do nowadays. We don't actually say the things that need to be said when they need to be said. We hold on to them until we can increase our book sales. Because who gives a fuck about democracy anyway? Apparently only just us. So the enemy is within. That is the point of Project 2025. That is the point of their right-wing, white supremacist LinkedIn project with over 20,000 Trump sycophants that sworn an allegiance to Donald Trump, that are ready and willing and able on day one of the Trump regime to undo our government from the inside out, to fire 50,000 civil servants. Civil servants, meaning that people who have dedicated, Donald Trump doesn't know anything about that, dedicated their lives to public service, he wants to get rid of. They are the enemy from within. All of us, those of us living in blue states, God forbid we get hit by a natural disaster under the Trump regime, because we're not getting any fucking FEMA aid. Oh, by the way, when he was president, he withheld FEMA aid from North Carolina because he doesn't like their Democratic governor, and then needed to be shown polling information about who voted for him in what state before he actually provided aid. That's just a little tidbit for what we would be in for in a Donald Trump regime. Tim Walz says this, and I'm running a little bit over, so bear with me. Tim Walz says this about Donald Trump's enemy from within.
That I have to tell you, in my lifetime, I would have never imagined, because we know our history, Donald Trump over the weekend was talking about using the U.S. Army against people who disagree with him. Just so you're clear about that, that's you. That's what he's talking about. This is not some mythical thing out there. He called it the enemy within. And to Donald Trump, anybody who doesn't agree with him is the enemy. I tell you that not to make you fearful or anything. I tell you that because we need to whip his butt and put this guy behind us.
This is what I keep saying, folks. We need to win this in such a way that it is too big to steal. That is what Democrats need to be talking about. It is not 21 or 22 days until the election. It is 21, 22 days until the election, until your last day to vote, until the election is over. We need our numbers to be so big that they can't kick this shit to the courts, that they can't wait on the MAGA-fied Supreme Court to anoint Donald Trump in the way that they already did in July with their presidential immunity gift. Everything is stacked against us. But we have the will. The people are on our side. The people just need to continue to be activated, which is why I have all of you here. Because each and every one of you, whether you have one person or two people or 20,000 or 200,000 people following you, activate your people, your network. Have the hard conversations. Have the uncomfortable conversations with your white family members, white women, young girls, about what it is that they stand to lose. They think that they will be safe. Remind them of Martin Niemöller's poem, First They Came For. First, they came for the trans people because nobody gave a shit about them. Then they came for the Black people. Then they come for the immigrants. And when there's no one left, they will come for you. That's my version of that poem. Folks, you know, this is who the Republican Party is. This is an image of a boat parade that happened over the weekend in Jupiter, Florida, outside of Palm Beach. This is real. This is not AI. They were proudly waving Nazi flags and Trump flags together hand in hand. And the man, one of the men on that boat is John Menandisio, who is from this Nazi group called GDL. And he's been arrested before for spreading right-wing propaganda in Poland, this will be the norm if Donald Trump becomes president for the last time. So, folks, as I leave you today, I want to say this. Because you all are having such amazing conversations in the chat, and thank you again to our amazing moderators, Susan and Lori, for holding things down there. Beginning this coming Tuesday, Tuesdays are going to be Town Hall Tuesdays, which means that I'm going to do the regular Danielle Moodie show for the first 30, 35 minutes, and then we're going to do 15 minutes of a town hall. You can ask questions in the chat. You can send questions via social media. But I want this show to be interactive. I want us to feel like we have a space and place for conversation. So if you're watching this, join live on Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, because at the end of the show, we're going to be doing town halls. And you can bring your questions, you can bring your concerns. I will do my best to go through as many as I can in the time that is allotted. But I am really, really looking forward to engaging with you all more with the Danielle Moodie Show. And as we get closer to election, I will tell you all of the places that I will be, which is including here with all of you on election night. I will do my live show. I will also probably be joining the Mary Trump show. I will be joining Mehdi Hassan's YouTube show. I will be everywhere doing everything. So trust me, you all will not be alone on election night. And I will be sure to let you know where and when to show up so that we can get through this together. Because just know, we are not going to find out who won the election on election night. And fuck it, folks. We didn't find out the election wasn't certified in 2020 until January 6th. Okay? If you just want to be really clear about that. So we got a long ways to go. But we're going to get through this together, dear friends. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to the Danielle Moodie Show. And if you are not able to join us live in the chats, do leave your comments after you watch the video. I read them. I take them into deep consideration, and it just makes me truly feel less alone as well, and not just speaking out into the void. And I want all of you to be heard, even if you're not in conversation in the chat. But the chat is lit, folks. It's lit. And you can see it in the live replay after I post the shows. So as always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these wild times, friends, please, please, please stay safe. I will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Bring your questions for Town Hall Tuesdays. And I love an alliteration, don't you? All right, folks. See you soon. Bye.